Letters from emptiness. All descriptions of reality are limited expressions of the world of emptiness. Yet we attach to the descriptions and think they are reality. That is a mistake. Letters from emptiness. Although we have no actual written communications from the world of emptiness, we have some hints or suggestions about what is going on in that world, and that is, you might say, enlightenment. When you see plum blossoms or hear the sound of a small stone hitting bamboo, that is a letter from the world of emptiness. Shikantaza is to practice or actualize emptiness. Although you can have a tentative understanding of it through your thinking, you should understand emptiness through your experience. You have an idea of emptiness and an idea of being, and you think that being and emptiness are opposites. But in Buddhism, both of these are ideas of being. The emptiness we mean is not like the idea you may have. You cannot reach a full understanding of emptiness with your thinking mind or with your feeling. That is why we practice Zazen. We have a term, shozoku, which is about the feeling you have when you receive a letter from home. Even without an actual picture, you know something about your home, what people are doing there or which flowers are blooming. That is shozoku. Although we have no actual written communications from the world of emptiness, we have some hints or suggestions about what is going on in that world, and that is, you might say, enlightenment. When you see plum blossoms or hear the sound of a small stone hitting bamboo, that is a letter from the world of emptiness. Besides the world which we can describe, there is another kind of world. All descriptions of reality are limited expressions of the world of emptiness. Yet we attach to the descriptions and think they are reality. That is a mistake, because what is described is not the actual reality. And when you think it is reality, your own idea is involved. That is an idea of self. Many Buddhists have made this mistake. That is why they were attached to written scriptures or Buddha's words. They thought that his words were the most valuable thing, and that the way to preserve the teaching was to remember what Buddha said. But what Buddha said was just a letter from the world of emptiness, just a suggestion or some help from him. If someone else reads it, it may not make sense. That is the nature of Buddha's words. To understand Buddha's words, we cannot rely on our usual thinking mind. If you want to read a letter from Buddha's world, it is necessary to understand Buddha's world. To empty water from a cup does not mean to drink it up. To empty means to have a direct, pure experience without relying on the form or color of being. So our experience is empty of our preconceived ideas, our idea of being, our idea of big or small, round or square. Round or square, big or small, don't belong to reality but are simple ideas. Round or square, big or small, don't belong to reality but are simply ideas. That is to empty water. We have no idea of water even though we see it. When we analyze our experience, we have ideas of time or space, big or small, heavy or light. A scale of some kind is necessary, and with various scales in our mind we experience things. Still, the thing itself has no scale. That is something we add to reality. Because we always use a scale and depend on it so much, we think the scale really exists, but it doesn't exist. If it did, it would exist with things. Using a scale, you can analyze one reality into entities, big and small, but as soon as we conceptualize something, it is already a dead experience. We empty ideas of big or small, good or bad from our experience, because the measurement that we use is usually based on the self. When we say good or bad, the scale is yourself. That scale is not always the same. Each person has a scale that is different, so I don't say that the scale is always wrong, but we are liable to use our selfish scale when we analyze or when we have an idea about something. That selfish part should be empty. How we empty that part is to practice Zazen and become more accustomed to accepting things as it is without any idea of big or small, good or bad. For artists or writers to express their direct experience, they may paint or write, but if their experience is very strong and pure, they may give up trying to describe it. Oh my! That is all. I like making a miniature garden around my house, but if I go to the stream and see the wonderful rocks and water running, I give up. Oh no, I shall never try to make a rock garden. It is much better to clean up Tasahara Creek, picking up any paper or fallen branches. It is nature itself. There is beauty that is beyond beauty. When you see a part of it, you may think, this rock should be moved one way and that rock should be moved another way, and then it will be a complete garden. Because you limit the actual reality using the scale of your small self, there is either a good garden or a bad garden, and you want to change some stones. But if you see the thing itself, as it is, with a wider mind, there is no need to do anything. The thing itself is emptiness, but because you add something to it, you spoil the actual reality. So if we don't spoil things, that is to empty things. When you sit in shikantaza, don't be disturbed by sounds. Don't operate your thinking mind. This means not to rely on any sense organ or the thinking mind and just receive the letter from the world of emptiness. That is shikantaza. To empty is not the same as to deny. Usually, when we deny something, we want to replace it with something else. When I deny the blue cup, it means I want the white cup. When you argue and deny someone else's opinion, you are forcing your own opinion on another. That is what we usually do. But our way is not like that. By emptying the added element of your self-centered ideas, we purify our observations of things. When we see and accept things as they are, we have no need to replace one thing with another. That is what we mean by to empty things. If we empty things, letting them be as it is, then things will work. Originally, things are related and things are one. And as one being, it will extend itself. To let it extend itself, we empty things. When we have this kind of attitude, then without any idea of religion, we have religion. When this attitude is missing in our religious practice, it will naturally become like opium. To purify our experience and to observe things as it is to understand the world of emptiness and to understand why Buddha left so many teachings. In our practice of shikantaza, we do not seek for anything, because when we seek for something, an idea of self is involved. Then we try to achieve something to further the idea of self. That is what you are doing when you make some effort. But our effort is to get rid of self-centered activity. That is how we purify our experience. For instance, if you are reading, your wife or husband may say, "Would you like to have a cup of tea?" "Oh, I am busy." You may say, "Don't bother me." When you are reading in that way, I think you should be careful. You should be ready to say, "Yes, that would be wonderful. Please bring me a cup of tea." Then you stop reading and have a cup of tea. After having your cup of tea, you continue your reading. Otherwise, your attitude is, "I am very busy right now." That is not so good, because then your mind is not actually in full function. A part of your mind is working hard, but the other part may not be working so hard. You may be losing your balance in your activity. If it is reading, it may be okay, but if you are making calligraphy and your mind is not in a state of emptiness, your work will tell you, "I am not in a state of emptiness." So you should stop. If you are a Zen student, you should be ashamed of making such calligraphy. To make calligraphy is to practice Zazen. So when you are working on calligraphy, if someone says, "Please have a cup of tea," and you answer, "No, I am making calligraphy," then your calligraphy will say, "No, you cannot fool yourself." I want you to understand what we are doing here at Zen Center. Sometimes it may be alright to practice Zazen as a kind of exercise or training, to make your practice stronger, or to make your breathing smooth and natural. That is perhaps included in practice, but when we say shikantaza, that is not what we mean. When we receive a letter from the world of emptiness, then the practice of shikantaza is working. Thank you very much. Brown rice is just right. How do you like Zazen? I think it may be better to ask, how do you like brown rice? Zazen is too big a topic. Brown rice is just right. Actually, there is not much difference. How do you like Zazen? I think it may be better to ask, how do you like brown rice? Zazen is too big a topic. Brown rice is just right. Actually, there is not much difference. When you eat brown rice, you have to chew it, and unless you chew it, it is difficult to swallow. When you chew it very well, your mouth becomes part of the kitchen, and actually, the brown rice becomes more and more tasty. When we eat white rice, we don't chew so much, but that little bit of chewing feels so good that naturally the rice goes right down our throats. When we digest food completely, what will become of it? It will be transformed, changing its chemical nature, and will permeate our whole body. In the process, it dies within our body. To eat and to digest food is natural to us, as we are always changing. This organic process is called emptiness. The reason we call it emptiness is that it has no special form. It has some form, but that form is not permanent. While it is changing, it carries on our life energy. We know that we are empty and also that this earth is empty. The forms are not permanent. You may wonder, what is this universe? But this universe has no limit. Emptiness is not something you can understand through a space trip. Emptiness can be understood when you are perfectly involved in chewing rice. This is actual emptiness. The most important point is to establish yourself in a true sense without establishing yourself on delusion. And yet, we cannot live or practice without delusion. Delusion is necessary, but delusion is not something on which you can establish yourself. It is like a stepladder. Without it, you cannot climb up, but you don't stay on the stepladder. With this confidence, you can continue to study our way. That is why I say, don't run away, stick with me. I don't mean stick to me, I mean stick with yourself, not with delusion. Sometimes I may be a delusion. You may overestimate me. He is a good teacher. That is already a kind of delusion. I am your friend. I am just practicing with you as your friend, who has many stepladders. We shouldn't be disappointed with a bad teacher or with a bad student. You know, if a bad student and a bad teacher strive for the truth, something real will be established. That is our Zazen. We must continue to practice Zazen and continue to chew brown rice. Eventually, we will accomplish something. Thank you very much. The Zen of going to the restroom. Fortunately or unfortunately, even though you don't like it, we need to go to the restroom. The stinky restroom. I'm sorry, but I think we have to go to the restroom as long as we live. How do you feel right now? I don't know how you feel, but I feel as if I have just come out of the restroom. As I am pretty old, I go to the restroom often. Even when I was young, I went to the restroom more often than others. and sometimes I had an advantage because of that. When I went to Aiheiji monastery and sat Tangaryo, a period of continuous sitting for several days required for entering a Zen monastery, I could go to the restroom without a guilty conscience because I had to. I was so happy to go to the restroom. I think that going to the restroom is a good way to look at our practice. Zen Master Umon may have been the first to make a connection between our practice and the restroom. "What is your practice? What is Buddha?" someone asked him. He answered, "Toilet paper." Actually, nowadays it is toilet paper, but he said, "something to wipe yourself with in the restroom." That is what he said. And since then, many Zen masters are thinking about it, practicing with the koan. What is toilet paper? What did he mean by that? In our everyday life, we eat many things, good and bad, fancy and simple, tasty and not so tasty. Later, we need to go to the restroom. Similarly, after filling your mind, we practice zazen. Otherwise, our thinking will eventually become very unhealthy. It is necessary for us to make our mind clear before we study something. It is like drawing something on white paper. If you do not use clean white paper, you cannot draw what you want. So it is necessary to go back to your original state where you have nothing to see and nothing to think about. Then you will understand what you are doing. The more you practice zazen, the more you will be interested in your everyday life. You will discover what is necessary and what is not, what part to correct and what part to emphasize more. So by practice, you will know how to organize your life. This is to observe your situation accurately, to clear your mind and begin from your original starting point. This is like going to the restroom. Our culture is based on the idea of gaining or accumulating something. Science, for instance, is the accumulation of knowledge. I don't know that a modern scientist is greater than a scientist in the 6th century. The difference is that we have accumulated our scientific knowledge. That is a good point and at the same time dangerous. We are in danger of being buried under all our accumulated knowledge. It is like trying to survive without going to the restroom. We are already swimming in the pond of polluted water and air, and we talk about this pollution. At the same time, we can hardly survive the pollution of our knowledge. Each one of us knows how to go to the restroom without attaching to something we have in our bodies. When we realize that we already have everything, we will not be attached to anything. Actually, we have everything. Even without going to the moon, we have it. When we try to go to the moon, it means that we think the moon is not ours. Our mind, as Buddha told us, is one with everything. Within our mind, everything exists. If we understand things in this way, then we will understand our activity. To study something is to appreciate something. To appreciate something is to be detached from things. When we become detached from things, everything will be ours. Our practice is to realize this kind of big mind. In other words, to go beyond each being included ourselves and let ourselves as it works. And let ourself work as it works. That is zazen practice. When we practice zazen, we actually clean up our various attachments. We are very much afraid of death, but when we are mature enough, we understand that death is something that should happen to us. If you die when you are young, that is a terrible thing. If I die, it is not such a terrible thing, either for me or for you, because I am mature enough to die. I understand my life pretty well, what it is to live one day, and what it is to live 1 year, and what it is to live 60 or 100 years. So anyway, when you become mature and experienced, having eaten many things in this life, I think you will be happy to die, just as you are happy to go to the restroom. It happens in that way. An old person, 80 or 90, hasn't many problems. Physically, old people may suffer, but that suffering is not as big a thing as you think. When people are young, they think about death as something terrible, So when they are dying, they continue to think that, but actually it isn't. There is some limit to our capacity to endure physical suffering, and mentally there is a limit to our capacity, but we think it is limitless. We have limitless suffering because we have limitless desire. That kind of desire, as Buddha says, creates our problem. We are accumulating our problems, one after another, with limitless desire, so we have bottomless fear. Actually, when we know how to clear up our mind, we will not have as many problems. Just as we go to the restroom every day, we practice Zazen every day. In monastic life, the best practice is to clean the restroom. Wherever you go, whichever monastery you go to, you will always find a special person cleaning the restroom. We do not clean our restroom just because it is dirty. Whether it is clean or not, we clean the restroom until we can do it without any idea of clean or dirty. When that is so, it is actually our Zazen practice. To extend this practice to everyday life may seem difficult, but actually it is quite simple. Our laziness makes it difficult, that's all. That is why we put emphasis on endurance, to continue our practice. There should not be any cessation of practice. Practice should go on, one moment after another. Some students who practice Zazen very hard are liable to ignore everyday life. If someone attains enlightenment, they may say, I have attained enlightenment under a great Zen master, so whatever I do is okay. I have complete freedom from good and bad. Only those who do not have an enlightenment experience stick to the idea of good or bad. Speaking in that way is to ignore everyday life. They do not take care of their life. They do not know how to organize their life or know what kind of rhythm they should have. To know the rhythm of our lives is to understand what we are doing. It is necessary to see our activity with a clear mind through Zazen experience. I came to America because in Japan I had too many problems. I am not sure, but perhaps that is why I came to America. When I was in Japan, I didn't practice Zazen as I do here. Now I have very different problems than I had in Japan. Even though I am practicing Zazen with you, my mind is like a garbage can. Even though I am in America, which is called a free country, my mind is like a garbage can. I am Japanese, and I have many Japanese friends here, so I have the problems most Japanese have in addition to other problems. Sometimes I wonder what I am doing here. But when I know what I am doing clearly, without any overestimation or underestimation, very honestly and truly, I do not have much burden on my mind. Zazen practice, especially, has been a great help. If I hadn't been practicing Zazen, I wouldn't have survived in the way I did. I started my practice when I was quite young, but even more, I started my practice in its true sense after I came to San Francisco. You may have a pretty difficult time with me. I know that what I'm doing is challenging for you, but this effort to understand things from another angle is not possible without communicating with people who are brought up in a different cultural background. To understand things just from a self-centered personal or national viewpoint is our weakness, and when we do that, we cannot develop our culture in its true sense. When our culture comes to this point, the only way to make it healthy is to participate in the cultural activities of various human beings. Then you will understand yourself better, as I understand myself and Zazen better since I came to San Francisco. When you understand yourself better and others better, you can just be yourself. Just to be a good American is to be good Japanese, and just to be a good Japanese is to be a good American. Because we stick to Japanese way or to American way, our mind becomes like a waste paper basket. If you notice this point, you will understand how important it is to practice Zazen. Fortunately or unfortunately, even though you don't like it, we need to go to the restroom, the stinky restroom. I'm sorry, but I think we have to go to the restroom as long as we live. If I were younger, I would sing a Japanese folk song right now about the restroom. Thank you very much. caring for the soil. Emptiness is the garden where you cannot see anything. It is actually the mother of everything, from which everything will come. Most of us study Buddhism as though it were something that was already given to us. We think that what we should do is preserve the Buddha's teaching, like putting food in the refrigerator. Then, to study Buddhism, we take the food out of the refrigerator. Whenever you want it, it is already there. Instead, Zen students should be interested in how to produce food from the field, from the garden. We put the emphasis on the ground. All of us have Buddha nature, and the teachings that grow from Buddha nature are similar to one another. The teachings of different schools of Buddhism do not differ so much, but the attitude towards the teaching is different. When you think that the teaching is already given to you, then naturally your effort will be to apply the teaching in this common world. For instance, Theravada students apply the teaching of the 12 links of causation to our actual life, to how we were born and how we die. Mahayana understanding is that the original purpose of this teaching, when the Buddha told it, was to explain the interdependency of different beings. Buddha tried to save us by destroying our common sense. Usually, we are not interested in the nothingness of the ground. Our tendency is to be more interested in something that is growing in the garden, not in the bare soil itself. But if you want to take a good harvest, the most important thing is to make the soil rich and cultivate it well. The Buddha's teaching is not about the food itself, but about how it is grown and how to take care of it. Buddha was not interested in a special deity or something that was already there. He was interested in the ground from which various gardens will appear. For him, everything was holy. Buddha did not think of himself as a special person. He tried to be like the most common person, wearing a robe, begging with a bowl. He thought, I have many students because the students are very good, not because of me. Buddha was great because his understanding of people was good. Because he understood people, he loved them and he enjoyed helping them. Because he had that kind of spirit, he could be a Buddha. Thank you very much. Everyday life is like a movie. When you are practicing, you realize that your mind is like a screen. If the screen is colorful enough to attract people, then it will not serve its purpose. So to have a screen which is not colorful, to have a pure plain white screen, is the most important point. I think most of you are rather curious about what Zen is. Zen is actually our way of life, and to practice Zazen is like setting your alarm clock. Unless you set your alarm, the clock will not serve its purpose. Every day we must have a starting point. The sun rises at a certain time and sets at a certain time, always repeating the same thing, and we do too, but it may not feel that way to us. Unless our life is organized, we may not realize how important it is to know where to start our life. As Zen students, our life begins with Zazen practice. We come back to zero and start from zero. Although we have various activities, the most important thing is to realize how these activities arise from zero. At the moment you decide to sit, it means that you already have set your alarm. When you have enough confidence to make the decisions to start practicing Zazen, that is zero. During Zazen, you may hear birds singing. Something is arising in your practice. In the same way, in our everyday life, many things will arise, and if you know where these things arise from, you will not be disturbed by them. Because you do not know how it happens, you become confused. If you know how things arise, then at the moment something happens to you, you will be ready. Oh, something is arising. It is like watching the sunrise. Oh, look, the sun is just coming up. For instance, sometimes you will be angry, but anger actually doesn't come all of a sudden. It may come very slowly. When you feel anger come all of a sudden, that is real anger. But when you know how it comes, anger is arising in my mind, that is not anger. People may say that you are angry, but actually you are not angry. If you know you are about to start crying, oh, I'm about to going to cry, oh, I'm going to cry, and then in the next 2 or 3 minutes, oh, I started crying, that is not crying. Our practice is to accept things as you accept various images in your sitting. The most important thing is to have big mind and to accept things. If you practice Zazen to obtain enlightenment, it will be like using an alarm clock without setting the time. It will go off anyway, but it doesn't make much sense. To sit every morning at a certain time makes sense. To know what you are doing at any particular time is the most valuable thing. This is to make effort according to the situation you are in. Our everyday life is like a movie playing on the widescreen. Most people are interested in the picture on the screen without realizing there is a screen. When the movie stops and you don't see anything anymore, you think, I must come again tomorrow evening. I will come back and see another show. When you are just interested in the movie on the screen and it ends, then you expect another show tomorrow, or maybe you are discouraged because there is nothing good on right now. You don't realize that the screen is always there, but when you are practicing, you realize that your mind is like a screen. If the screen is colorful enough to attract people, then it will not serve its purpose. So to have a screen which is not colorful, to have a pure, plain, white screen is the most important point, but most people are not interested in the pure white screen. I think it is good to be excited by seeing a movie. To some extent, you can enjoy the movie because you know that it is a movie. Even though you have no idea of the screen, still your interest is based on an understanding that this is a movie, with the screen and there is a projector or something artificial. So you can enjoy it. That is how we enjoy our life. If you have no idea of the screen or the projector, perhaps you cannot see it as a movie. Zazen practice is necessary to know the kind of screen you have and to enjoy your life as you enjoy movies in the theater. You are not afraid of the screen. You do not have any particular feeling for the screen, which is just a white screen, so you are not afraid of your life at all. You enjoy something you are afraid of. You enjoy something that makes you angry or makes you cry, and you enjoy the crying and the anger too. If you have no idea of the screen, then you will even be afraid of enlightenment. What is this? Oh my! If someone attains enlightenment, you may ask him about the experience that he had. When you hear about the experience, you may say, oh no, that is not for me. But it is just a movie, you know, something for you to enjoy. And if you want to enjoy the movie, you should know that it is the combination of film and light and screen, and that the most important thing is the plain white screen. That white screen is not something that you can actually attain. It is something you always have. The reason you don't feel you have it is because your mind is too busy. Once in a while, you should stop all your activities and make your screen white. That is Zazen. That is the foundation of our everyday life and our meditation practice. Without this kind of foundation, your practice will not work. All the instructions you receive are about how to have a clean white screen, even though it is never pure white, because of various attachments and previous stains. When we just practice Zazen with no idea of anything, we are quite relaxed, because it is difficult to have complete relaxation in our usual posture. We take the posture of Zazen. To do this, we follow the instructions that have been accumulated from the experience of many people in the past. They discovered that the posture of Zazen is much better than other postures, better than standing up or lying down. If you practice Zazen following the instructions, it will work. But if you do not trust your own pure white screen, your practice will not work. Thank you very much. Resuming big mind. When we practice Zazen, it is not that big mind is actually controlling small mind, but simply that when small mind becomes calm, big mind starts its true activity. The purpose of Seishin is to be completely one with our practice. We use two Chinese characters for Seishin. Setsu means to treat something the way you treat a guest or the way a student treats his teacher. Another meaning of Setsu is to control or to arrange things in order. Shin means mind or heart. So Seishin means to have proper functioning of mind. It is our five senses and our will, or small monkey mind, which should be controlled. When we control our monkey mind, we resume our true big mind. When monkey mind is always taking over the activity of big mind, we naturally become a monkey. So monkey mind must have its boss, which is big mind. However we practice Zazen, it is not that big mind is actually controlling small mind, but simply that when small mind becomes calm, big mind starts its true activity. Most of the time in our everyday life, we are involved in the activity of small mind. That is why we should practice Zazen and be completely involved in resuming big mind. A good example of our practice is a turtle, which has 4 legs, a head and a tail, 6 parts of the body, which are sometimes outside of the shell and sometimes inside. When you want to eat or go somewhere, your legs are out, but if they are always out, you will be caught by something. In case of danger, you draw in your legs, head and tail. The 6 parts refer to the 5 senses and the mind. This is Seishin. For 1 week, our head, tail and legs are inside the shell. In the scriptures it says that even demons cannot destroy us if the 6 parts of our body are inside the shell. In Zazen, we do not try to stop thinking or cut off hearing and seeing. If something appears in your mind, leave it. If you hear something, hear it, and just accept it. Oh, that is all. No second activity should appear in your Zazen. Sound is one activity. The second activity is, what is that sound? Is it a motor car or a garbage truck or something? If you hear a sound, that is all. You hear it. Don't make any judgment. Don't try to figure out what it is. Just open your ears and hear something. Just open your eyes and see something. When you are sitting for a pretty long time, watching the same place on the wall, you may see various images. It looks like a river, or it looks like a dragon. Then you may think that you should not be thinking, but you see various things. Dwelling on these images may be a good way to kill time, but it is not Seishin. To be concentrated on something may be important, but just to have a well-concentrated mind is not Zazen. It is one of the elements of practice, but calmness of mind is also necessary. So don't intensify the activity of the 5 sense organs. Just leave them as they are. That is how to free your true mind. When you can do so in everyday life, you will have a soft mind. You won't have many preconceived ideas, and the bad habits in your way of thinking will not be overpowering. You will have generous mind and big mind, and what you say will help others. For example, in the ॿ𝗹𝘄𝘆𝘀, Dogen Zenji tells a story which was told to him about an influential person, Ichio Motoi. One day, Motoi discovered that his sword was missing, and since no one else could have broken into his house, one of his own men must have stolen it. The sword was found and brought back to him, but Motoi said, "This is not my sword, so give it back to the one who owns it." People knew that the man who had the sword was the one who had stolen it, but because Motoi didn't accuse him of it, no one could say anything, so nothing happened. This is the calmness of mind we should have according to Dogen. If we have a generous big mind, and if we have a strong spirit of practice, then there is no need to worry. Dogen emphasized a sparse, simple life, without expecting anything. We just practice our way. Many students asked how it would be possible to support the temples or group without any plan, and he said, "If it becomes difficult to support our temple, we will think about it, but until then it is not necessary to think about it. So before something happens, it is not our way to think about it too much. In that way, we have complete calmness of our minds. Because you have something, you worry about losing it, but if you don't have anything, there is no need to worry." One night, Dogen said, "Even if you think a teaching is complete and right, when someone tells you a better way, you should change your understanding. In this way, we improve our understanding of the teaching forever. Because you think it is right at that time, you follow the theory or rules, but you also have some space in your mind to change your idea. That is soft mind. It is possible to change your ideas because you know what kind of monkey your thinking is. Sometimes you follow the monkey's suggestions. Oh yeah, that's right. If we go in that direction, we may get some food. Okay, let's go. But when you see a better way to go, you may say, "Oh monkey, it may be better to go this way." If you stick to your greed or anger or some other emotion, if you stick to the thinking mind, your monkey mind, you cannot change. Your mind is not soft. So in our practice, we rely on something great and sit in that great space. The pain you have in your legs or some other difficulty is happening in that great space. As long as you do not lose the feeling that you are in the realm of Buddha nature, you can sit even though you have some difficulty. When you want to escape from your difficulty, or when you try to improve your practice, you create another problem for yourself. But if you just exist there, then you have a chance to appreciate your surroundings, and you can accept yourself completely without changing anything. That is our practice. To exist in big mind is an act of faith, which is different from the usual faith of believing in a particular idea or being. It is to believe that something is supporting us and supporting all our activities, including thinking mind and emotional feeling. All these things are supported by something big that has no form or color. It is impossible to know what it is, but something exists there, something that is neither material nor spiritual, something like that always exists, and we exist in that space. That is the feeling of pure being. If you are brave enough to throw yourself into Zazen for 7 days, a little bit of understanding will help your rigidity and your stubbornness. Almost all the problems you create because of your stubborn mind will vanish. If you have even the smallest understanding of reality, your way of thinking will change completely, and the problems you create will not be problems anymore. But it is also true that as long as we live, we will have problems. So we don't practice Zazen to attain some big enlightenment that will change our whole being or solve all our problems. That is not the right understanding. That may be what people call Zen, But true Zen is not like that. In Seishin, we concentrate on having the experience of true practice, forgetting all about any idea of gaining anything. We just sit here. If this room is too cold, we will make it warm, and if your legs become painful, you can stretch them, and if it is too difficult, you can rest. But let's continue our practice for these 7 days. Thank you very much. Ordinary mind, Buddha mind. Buddha, in its true sense, is not different from ordinary mind, and ordinary mind is not something apart from what is holy. This is a complete understanding of ourself. When we practice Zazen with this understanding, that is true Zazen. The point of my talk is to give you some support for your practice. There is no need for you to remember what I say. If you stick to it, you stick to the support, not the tree itself. A tree, when it is strong, may still want some support, but the most important thing is the tree itself, not the support. I am one tree, and each one of you is a tree. You should stand up by yourself. When a tree stands up by itself, we call that tree a Buddha. In other words, when you practice Zazen in its true sense, you are really Buddha. Sometimes we call it a tree, and sometimes we call it a Buddha. Buddha, tree, or you are many names of one Buddha. When you sit, you are independent from various beings, and you are related to various beings. And when you have perfect composure in your practice, you include everything. You are not just you are the whole world or the whole cosmos, and you are a Buddha. So, when you sit, you are an ordinary human, and you are a Buddha. Before you sit, you may stick to the idea that you are ordinary. So when you sit, you are not the same being as you are before you sit. Do you understand? You may say that it is not possible to be ordinary and holy. When you think this way, your understanding is one-sided. In Japanese, we call someone who understands things from just one side a ṱ𝗏𝘆𝘀, someone who carries a board on his shoulder. Because you carry a big board on your shoulder, you cannot see the other side. You think you are just an ordinary human, but if you take the board off, you will understand, oh, I'm Buddha too. How can I be both Buddha and ordinary human? It is amazing. That is enlightenment. When you experience enlightenment, you will understand things more freely. You won't mind whatever people call you. Ordinary mind? Okay, I am ordinary mind. Buddha? Yes, I am Buddha. How do I come to be both Buddha and ordinary mind? I don't know how. I don't know, but actually, I am Buddha and ordinary mind. Buddha, in its true sense, is not different from ordinary mind, and ordinary mind is not something apart from what is holy. This is a complete understanding of ourself. When we practice Zazen with this understanding, that is true Zazen, we will not be bothered by anything. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, that will be okay. To have this feeling, it is necessary to become accustomed to our practice. If you keep practicing, you will naturally have this understanding and this feeling. It will not just be intellectual. You will have the actual feeling. Even though someone can explain what Buddhism is, if he does not have the actual feeling, we cannot call him a real Buddhist. Only when your personality is characterized by this kind of feeling, then we call you a Buddhist. The way to become characterized by this kind of understanding is to always concentrate on this point. Many koans and sayings bring out this point. Ordinary mind understands things dualistically, But even though we are doing what we usually do, that is actually Buddha's activity. Buddha's mind, Buddha's activity, and our activity are not different. Someone may say that such and such is Buddha's mind, and thus and so is ordinary mind, but there is no need to explain it in that way. When we do something, we cannot say, I am doing something, because there is no one who is independent from others. When I say something, you will hear it. I cannot do anything by myself, just for myself. If someone does something, everyone will be doing something. Moment after moment, we continue our activity, which is Buddha's activity. But you cannot say that this is just Buddha's activity, because you are actually doing something too. Then you may say I, because we do not know what I that is. You try to say who's doing what because you want to intellectualize your activity. But before you say anything, the actual activity is present. Who you are is here. Our activity is both cosmic and personal, so there is no need to explain what we are doing. We may want to explain it, but we should not feel uneasy if we cannot, because it is impossible to understand. Actually, you are here, right here, so before you understand yourself, you are you. After you explain, you are not really you anymore. You just have an image, but usually you will stick to the image which is not you, and you will ignore the reality. As Dogen Zenji said, we human beings attach to something that is not real and forget all about what is real. That is actually what we do. If you realize this point, you will have perfect composure and you can't trust yourself. Whatever happens to you, it doesn't matter. You trust yourself, and this is not the usual trust or belief in what is not real. When you are able to sit without any image or any sound, with an open mind, that is true practice. When you can do that, you are free from everything. Still, it is alright for you to enjoy your life moment after moment, because you are not enjoying your life as something concrete and eternal. Our life is momentary, and at the same time, each moment includes its own past and future. In this way, our momentary and eternal life will continue. This is how we actually lead our everyday life, how we enjoy our everyday life, and how we have freedom from various difficulties. I was sick in bed for a long time and I was thinking about these things. I was just practicing Zazen in bed. I should enjoy being in bed. Sometimes it was difficult, but then I laughed at myself. Why it is so difficult? Why don't you just enjoy your difficulties? That is, I think, our practice. Thank you very much.